It is time once again for another episode of the Apple Circle podcast. We've got some interesting news to break down this week on the new MacBook Pro. Matt has a very interesting Mac setup that I'm very interested to discuss and get into because I've got some questions for him on some things. Tim Cook may have just confirmed the headset is real, plus some other iOS 16 news, rumors, and stuff like that. We've got a lot to jump into this week, but first, as always, we want to hear from you guys. If you guys want to get connected with the show, if you have a question, a comment, as we sort of get into the back-to-school season, maybe a buyer's guide, maybe you want to know what you should buy and what you shouldn't buy, let us know by checking out the Apple Circle podcast hotline, which is 949-354-3508. You can call it, you can text it, you can find us on Twitter, we're the Apple Circle, you can find us on YouTube. There's a video version of this show available as well, which for anyone watching the video version, I apologize. My hair is I need a haircut. You know, like when you need a haircut and it's like overgrown, that's where I'm at now. And I was listening to the show in my car and I realized I desperately need to do some kind of acoustic treatment in here. I am in this new room here. I've been here now for a few months. It's hardwood floor, which is problem one. I have a carpet behind me, but it's not over here, so it's not carpeted. The other bigger problem is I have no sound treatment on the walls. I'll show you here, actually, for those watching the video version. I have these panels I took from our offices. Like, we had, like, these, like, just, like, regular acoustic panels, like, a couple of them in a box. I took these here, and I have, like, one on my desk to try to stop the absorption of audio on the wood desk. I've got some around the camera, some on the floor to kind of cocoon myself, but I've got no audio treatment. Then the worst problem of all is the video server that houses like 25 terabytes of stuff is that the Jellyfish, which is a fancy name for like a little computer basically, that's got it's funny because on their site they say it's whisper quiet, which it's relatively quiet, I will say, especially compared to like other rack mounted stuff. It's not that bad, but it's loud and it's right by where I record this podcast. It's like behind these like flimsy little closet doors. So it's really loud. So all of those together makes for some poor acoustic treatment, which all that to say, I'm working on it. Maybe I'm going to get some advice from Matt on how I can better treat this area, but I don't know what to do.
Yesterday, I just found a website that sells some very aesthetic wood panels that are acoustic. It's called Wood Up with 2 P, so woodupp.com. They look pretty nice, and they're not that they're expensive, but they're not that expensive for what you're getting. If you want to go the aesthetic route, this seems pretty cool. I might order a few for my room because the audio is okay in here in terms of like reverberation, but it could always be better. And sound panels is like the good place to start. But yeah, it's always like you either have to go all in or nothing really works. Like if you just do like a sound blanket, it helps, but then you have to take it down every time.
Well,
it's very
that's
annoying.
Exactly what I don't want to do.
If you want it to look good,
yeah,
if you want it to look good, you kind of just have to go all in. Otherwise, if you don't, then you don't have enough for it to actually make a difference. It's a pain. Sound treating a room is very expensive, and I don't know. If you guys hate the sound, though, let us know.
Yeah, let me know. I feel like sort of what I tried to do this weekend, actually, to fix the crux of the issue, was I wanted to try to get rid of the Jellyfish. Well, not get rid of it, but it's so loud and I have nowhere else to put it. The problem is the way it's designed, it needs to be direct attached to the Mac. So I don't know where else I could wire it. There's nowhere else for me to move it in this immediate vicinity that I could store it. I don't have like another bedroom accessible. Really, I guess I have other rooms. I don't have a way to cable it. So I'd have to put a cable in the hallway, which I don't want to do. So I'm sort of stuck with it in this room. So then I was thinking, well, how can I turn it off? Well, turning it off and on doesn't work just because I need to access it too much and it's like a big pain for it. So I was like, well, maybe I could just sort of move the data off of it to something else. And to make a long story short, I have a Synology that I could use that's way quieter. It's a little loud, but it's way quieter than this. But the problem is that I can't move the stuff off the Jellyfish to the Synology because for whatever reason, the Thunderbolt to 10 gig cards are like nowhere to be found online. They're like out of stock everywhere. So I only have one. So I have no way to connect both of them at once to move the data. So basically, I'm stuck as it is. I wondered if I could just sound treat the closet and like insulate the closet, which I know could be bad because it could overheat the Jellyfish, which I don't want to do. But I almost need to figure out a way to dampen the noise of that fan. I don't know. There's a lot of things I could do, but that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm battling the acoustics of this room. Not fun.
Yeah, that's always the issue. But I guess speaking of our rooms and our setups, I did finally make an upgrade
Yes.
to the setup. We've talked about it many times. So I purchased a new monitor, and I didn't actually get a monitor. I got a TV. We've talked about this a few times, but I got the LG C2 42-inch TV. I'll throw in a clip here so you can see what my setup looks like as of right now. It's going to change because there's a lot that needs to be done with a display this big. Now, this was purchased as an experiment. I have tried the studio display, and I liked it a lot. It was just, for the price, do I really, it's not that special, I don't think. Like, I think it looks really good, so for my setup, I like that. But in terms of functionality, it's just kind of like the iMac display that we've had for years, so it just didn't blow me away, right? So I decided to try out the OLED route because, there's people that do that for their setups, and we have always gone back and forth whether or not it would be worth it, and I figured the only way to do it was to try it. So I now have a 42-inch monitor connected to my MacBook Pro, and I'll say this. It's very big. It's 42 inch. When you look at it in pictures, I think it actually doesn't look that big, but in person, it's pretty big. And there's a few things that, well, I'll say this. Yesterday when I got it, I was like instantly, nah, this isn't gonna work. Like I was pretty much over it pretty quickly. But I mean, since I bought it, I gotta stick with it and give it its proper trial. And now on the second day, I walked in and I was looking at it, I was like, I kind of like it. I'm getting used to it, and it's very big. I can't keep saying that enough. It's very big. The real issue here, though, is the resolution. It's 4K, but the resolution of 4K at this size up close, it's not quite enough. It's okay. It's not horrible, but it could be better. If this was like an 8K TV, then that'd be the dream. But obviously that doesn't exist. But yeah, I took the plunge. This is something that you were even considering doing, right?
Yes, I am, because I've seen, like you, like I'm looking at my monitors now. I've seen the videos on it, and like there's so many pros and cons to this. And I think one of the things we were talking about, a couple of things. Obviously, like on paper, this seems like the perfect solution because it's a 42-inch OLED TV. Like it's OLED. Each pixel is individually lit. That means it's better than the Pro Display XDR. Well, that's 6K. So I guess not resolution wise, but it's better than mini LED tech where you have zones of pixels that are lit. So it's better than the studio display. It's got, thin bezels. It's like, on paper, it makes a lot of sense. But like we were talking about yesterday, sort of over text, couple of issues here is one is that it's a TV, so it's not designed to be a monitor. You're also sort of usually sitting way further back, and you're not sort of sitting as close as you would a monitor. And the other big concern right now with OLED is burn-in. How burn-in was really a thing back with those old CRT monitors. We both have burn-in on our LCD displays, which it should be way less susceptible to burn-in, but you still get burn-in. But OLED is way more susceptible for whatever it is, whether it's just how the pixels are being lit. That's always one of the issues, and that's one of the concerns I have is that, you have the menu bar at the top of the Mac or anything like the dock, anything static can burn in. So I know that we talked about ways you could sort of minimize that, and from what I've understood, as long as you sort of keep things moving on the desktop or like not have static things, then you could sort of get around that. And even then, let's say you get burn-in 2 or 3 years into this. And I think for a lot of people who are in this creative professional space, the lifespan of a piece of tech is usually around that time. So I'm not saying to just throw it away in garbage and ruin your stuff, but maybe you got your value out of those 3 years and you can move on to something better. Maybe it's worth it. So I know. Have you done anything to sort of minimize that? Have you hidden the dock and the menu bar and stuff like that, or just kind of not yet?
Yeah, I've already had those hidden, so it's luckily not too much of an issue. The only real thing that I changed was I went into the screensaver settings and set that to 5 minutes, so that turns on pretty frequently. And once the screensaver's on, I'm not worried about it at all. But yeah, I mean, I did a lot of research about it. It seemed some people had some issues with it with the last generation. The C2, not the C, so the C1 was the last generation. The C2 is relatively new, so I don't think it hasn't been out long enough for people to know if that's going to be an issue here. But I'm not too worried about it. The only other real issue with it, kind of going back to the point of this being a TV, is that there's a few things in here that are kind of weird because it's a TV. The first one is this is not that big a video, but it's something you definitely notice. Because it's OLED and LG knows about the burn-in problem, they really try to mitigate it as much as possible. And the main way they do it is there's this thing called like pixel shift, which you don't notice happening. So that's one way. So even though you don't perceive it, it is actually moving the pixels so that it doesn't, stay in one spot. The other thing is that there's like an auto dimness mode. So right now my screen is very dim because I haven't touched anything for a while. But if I go, I mean, you're not gonna be able to see this, but if I go like move this my monitor, then it comes back to life. That's not a big deal. I mean, I don't really care about it. If I'm not looking at something, then who cares if it goes dim? The weirdest thing though is because it's a TV, it doesn't detect anything from your computer. So if I wake my computer from the keyboard, nothing happens on the monitor. I have to turn on the TV and then it works. Yeah. So that's I guess you could do like if this does have HDMI, like what is it called?
Yeah,
CEC
that's
or ARC
exactly
or
what I
whatever
was
it's called.
gonna say. Did you turn on CEC?
No, it does have that, but it doesn't work for a computer for whatever reason. Unless I'm wrong, all the research I've seen says that you have to turn it on with the remote. So I've got the remote right here. It's a good remote, and it's easy to use. I will say I have been using the speakers in this TV instead of dedicated speakers. It actually sounds pretty good. If you're trying to watch a movie in surround sound, it's not going to be good enough. But for like watching YouTube videos, it's plenty good enough. Computer monitor aside, it looks great. Like if you're watching content, if you're, the one thing I haven't tried yet is gaming, but I know gaming on this is going to be excellent. It has FreeSync and whatever the other one is from whatever the other company is, 120 hertz. It has everything you want for gaming. So I'm very excited to try that out. And I like it. I don't know. It's growing on me. I will say today, for whatever reason, I guess maybe because it's a full day of using it, this thing gets hot. Like I could feel the heat coming off of it. That alone might be something I don't want to deal with very much longer, but I don't know. There's something about having a huge screen like this that is just fun.
It looks
cool.
nice.
And today, another thing is I got my window management kind of down. So I'm using the snapping with Magnet, the app Magnet, which lets you snap windows. And once you get that going, like I had, for instance, today we were going over some scripts. So I had Google Docs open. I mean, it's like huge since it's a big screen. I could see the entire document, but it's only taking up one portion of the screen. On the other side, I have everything else open. It's nice. I like it.
I will say we talked a little bit before about the deals on the C1s, how I think even so right now, Amazon has them like on fire sale. Like you can like get these older LG OLEDs at a pretty steep discount. I did get one and it is incredible. I finally switched out my old.
Wait, you got
I got
one?
one. It was an early
Well, you're keeping
early
secrets from
Father's
us.
Day gift. I got it like 2 weeks ago. It's great. I finally.
So which one did you
I
get?
got
What'd you
the LG C1 65-inch.
65.
Replacing my
Costco deal.
I got it on Amazon. It's actually cheaper, surprisingly. They're like within
nice.
$50 of Costco. Well, I noticed because the deal's so good, none of the Costco's around me had them, so we just ordered Amazon.
Yeah.
And to go from like a
Loving
regular
it?
4K TV, like I think I bought like one of those Black Friday 4K TVs. It was like a 50-inch Samsung. I probably bought that in college. It was like 2014, 2015. I bought that, and like it was fine. To finally get an OLED and like to see like what this generation of TVs is, blown away. So now I wish LG was sponsoring
That's my next
this
step.
because it'd be nice. I mean, I
know we're talking about two
know.
LG TVs here.
I know, like I did a lot of research, and like I know like there's the C2 is like technically like better technology, and like it gets brighter, so it kind of matches mini LED.
a little bit, yeah.
But the prices on the C1 are too good right now to pass up. So Matt, you got to do it. I did it. I was hesitant. I hooked it up.
Well,
I tried
yeah.
to start watching Dolby Vision stuff, and it just looks too good. So, props.
Well, and here's the thing: like for the price I paid for this 42-inch C2, I could get the C1 for probably the same price. This is $1,400.
Yeah, I think
the 42 inch
so that was $1,400 for your 42. My 65 C1 was $1,550.
Yeah,
so it's
so there
like
you go.
right within
I mean,
there.
it's
So
not that different.
And I know it's still a lot of money, but what's crazy, and I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, is remember when OLEDs were like at CES, it was like the creme de la creme. They were the best. It was like $8,000 for an OLED TV, and like there are still higher end OLED TVs that are like $4,000 or $5,000. But to see,
it's more the size though.
yes,
Like it's not the tech itself. It's like the size.
it's really
of the
like if
screen
you
that
jump
costs so
above
much.
65, that's when you're still getting hit with prices. But even I think The 77-inch model of the C1, which is an
It's
OLED,
not
it's
too
still like
bad.
$2,300,
Yeah.
which is not that bad for a
Yeah.
77-inch OLED. So the price
Yeah.
is just too good. I'm like, I don't want
Do
to
you
wait.
remember?
So
Let me know if you remember this. Do you remember back in the day, the first OLED? I think it was the first OLED ever sold from Sony. It's like a 12-inch. They had it at Best Buy in like the home theater section. Did you ever see that?
wasn't it like in like a casing or something? Like,
Yeah, like you couldn't
yeah.
really touch it, but it was very small and it was OLED. I just remember it being OLED and like, man, ooh, organic LED. Like, oh, this is awesome. I'm trying to look it up right
It
now.
just,
But did you ever see that?
I vaguely remember that. I just remember going to CES in like 2011, 2012, 2013. And for those who don't know, that's the Consumer Electronics Show. Like, that's where, like, it's really become a TV show. It's where all the new TVs are shown off. And OLED was like the thing. And the TVs are super thin and the pictures look really good. But like at that point, they weren't even announcing pricing. And like the pricing was just crazy. It was like 8,000, 10,000. Like it was like unattainable for most people. And now, props to LG and other manufacturers, and the tech has gotten so good and the price has gone down so much that, you know, you can get a really good 65-inch OLED TV for well under $2,000, which, you know, like I was thinking, you know, it's an investment. Obviously, you keep your TV for a while. I had that other TV for like 4 or 5 years. So if I keep this for 4 or 5 years, it's got 120 hertz. It's got you know, Dolby Vision support. It's got YARC. It's got all the stuff I'd want. I think it's like, you know, going to be a good investment for 5 years. It's worth it. So I've watched a couple of things on there, and it looks so good. OLED is just, it's super good.
Yeah, I just found the Sony I was talking about. So it's the first OLED television ever sold. It's from Sony. It came back in 2007. So this is pretty old. Back, you know, first iPhone days. XEL-1. That's the name. Here's the specs on it. Just for reference, how far we have come. So it's tiny. It's 11 inches. So it's a tiny screen. It's 960 by 540 resolution, which is nothing. It does still have the 1,000,000 to 1 contrast ratio because it is still OLED. The tech is still there. But here's the kicker: it was $2,500. That was back then. I don't even know. Let me look up inflation on that. I mean, $4,000.
I guess
maybe?
to sort of
that's crazy.
to tie this back in Apple, what's crazy too is that there are rumors that is starting as early as maybe next year, Apple could start to adopt OLED on some products. Specifically, where I think it would make a lot of sense is iPad Pros.
Right.
So right now you have
Yeah.
the 12.9-inch iPad Pro with mini LED, and we don't have to make this a TV thing, but you know, there's mini LED, which has the zones of pixels individually lit. So like basically, from my layman's terms understanding, LCD LED, it's just like the panel is either on or off. So if there's black parts, it's sort of black, but like the pixels are still being lit. With mini LED, there are zones, and there are different, you know, numbers of zones on different, you know, sets and stuff like that, where you could have darker parts where the pixels aren't lit. And with OLED, each individual pixel is lit. So if it's a black pixel, if it's like a night sky, it's off. It's supposed to be black. The pixel is off, and it looks, you know, black like the TV's off. The iPad Pros have really good mini LED tech built into their screens, but OLED would be even better and even make stuff on there look, you know, even better. It's gonna look great.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for that because I've said it before, but I love the mini LED display in the iPad Pro and the MacBook Pro for that matter. And you know, taking it to that next level, I think would be nice. I just looked up the inflation, by the way. $2,500 in 2007 is $3,500 today. So $3,500 for an 11-inch. I don't know how many people bought those. It couldn't have been that much. All right. Well, we talked about TVs enough. You did a good job of tying it back.
I tried.
Tying it back to, I guess, another thing, you know, semi-related is that apparently iPhone 14 is about to go in production. I guess they were testing the displays to make sure that they are ready for production. iPhone 14, full steam ahead. I don't know what they're testing because, like, it's the same thing. But what else? I think one interesting thing, because we talk about this a lot, but one interesting thing that you mentioned up front was that Tim Cook may have kind of hinted at something that's coming. What's
There's a lot of debate on this I saw today on Twitter. So apparently Tim Cook did a video interview with some overseas publication. I don't know where, in some Asian country. Don't know specifics. But during the interview, the interviewee the interviewer, sorry, let me get my news terms correct. The interviewer asked Tim Cook about AR and VR, how there was a lot of interest in that region about AR and VR and what Apple was planning to do in that space. And Tim Cook, as any Apple CEO or any CEO would, sort of danced around the subject and said, yeah, we're really excited about the potential in the space. We've got AR kit apps and stuff like that. But he did say, just stay tuned for sort of what we have in this space or what our future plans are, something to that effect. He said, stay tuned. And if Tim says to stay tuned, I'm staying tuned. And there is debate online about this on whether or not that refers to Tim saying, hey, stay tuned because the headset's coming and see what we're going to do in this space that's going to be really incredible. Or some are like, oh, he's just referring to AR and VR in general. I don't think that's the case. I think he's sort of hinting at this. And I think that a January launch is looking more and more likely, which is super exciting.
Yeah, here's the direct quote. It's from it was an interview with China Daily, by the way. That's who he was doing the interview with. And his direct quote is, "I could not be more excited about the opportunities in the space. Sort of stay tuned, and you will see what we have to offer." He wouldn't be saying that if he's talking about like iOS 16.1 or something. You know, like this has got to be an actual product that we all know is coming, and yeah, interesting. I mean, it's not the first time that we've heard an executive kind of speak like this, where you know that they're trying to tell you without actually telling you. This is definitely one of those situations, I think.
It's sort of like when Joanna Stern asked Craig Federighi how the headset software for the headset is going, and he said, you know, on paper he says, I don't know anything what you're talking about, but his facial expression and his
the way he says
smile sort of. It's a not so well kept secret. It's sort of like, I don't know if you watched John Gruber's talk show live at WWDC. He sat down with Greg Joswiak and Craig Federighi, and they're talking about things. And on the subject of CarPlay, it did come up, and he sort of plainly stated that, you know, there are rumors that Apple is building their own car. And everyone kind of got a chuckle out of it, and Craig and Jaws laughed, and nothing was said, but there's a hint and an assumption that, yeah, Apple knows about it and we're not going to comment on it, but yeah, there's work being done. And that's sort of the same thing here. I think that Tim is sort of suggesting that, hey, something is coming. I'm not going to talk about it, but, you know, make of that what you will. But we all know, if you're following the news, this thing is coming.
Yeah, and they know that we know, and they know that we know they know. You know, it goes in a whole circle. I remember back in my Mac Rumors days, I went to the Apple campus. That was back when I used to live there. So I went there not often, but often enough. Just because I live so close and it was cool. But I went to the store and was just talking to the people, and I think I bought something with like my Mac Rumors card, so it says Mac Rumors on it. And they said like, oh yeah, every single person that I know at this company, the guy that was working there, like every single person reads Mac Rumors. And we kind of like keep it as a secret. Point being that they know exactly what the rumors are. They know what people are speculating. They know that we know what they're working on. It's just kind of interesting. It's like just don't talk about it. It's something that we all know is going on. Just don't bring it up. Don't ruffle any feathers. But it's always fun when they kind of let it slip a little bit. They give us a little peek behind it. I mean, it's not much. It's not like we know what this thing is now, but hopefully that means if he's like, you could think of it in two senses. Obviously, we're reading way too much into this one sentence, but on one hand, you could say, well, he just said that because he has to say something, and they're obviously working on AR, so it's not that weird to say something's coming. Or you could look at it on the other hand, that the fact that he did say something means it's coming relatively soon, so he can say something. I don't know. But I guess tying it into another thing, VR goggles aside, or mixed reality goggles aside, apparently we get a rumor here from Jeff Poo, who is I'm trying to figure out where he's from. Haitong International Tech Research Analyst Jeff Poo. Apparently, he says that AR glass, not the headsets, the actual glasses like what I'm wearing now, should be coming, or they're in the development stage and could be coming as early as 2024. He says 2022. That's obviously not happening, but 2024, second half of 2024. What do you think?
No way. This is sad because I think if you had said this like 3 years ago, it made a whole lot of sense. And like, that's always what we've heard is headset, maybe two headsets, glasses. But if the complications of the headset have caused this much of a delay, at this point, the glasses are coming in like 6 years. So I don't know what it is. I mean, I guess to play devil's advocate to that, maybe the hard part was developing the tech and to getting it all to work together and the software. And maybe now that they've overcome that with the headset, it's easier to take those parts and transform it and shrink them down into glasses. That's a little bit more optimistic. And maybe that's 3 to 4 years away. 2 years away, no chance. If the headset launches in 2023, I think the earliest we could see glasses is probably, 2026? I think there's got to be at least, I'm going to guess, 2 generations of the headset before we see the glasses. And that would make me believe we're at least 3 to 4 years after the launch of the headset. Because, well, let's say we get the headset in 2023, we get the next iteration maybe by the end of 2024. So maybe that puts the glasses in 2025, 2026. And that's like at a pretty ambitious timetable. So I'm a little more skeptical than Jeff's timeline.
Yeah, me too. I guess my question really is, okay, if let's just they're developing this. We've heard rumors. I think John Prosser said he's actually seen them. So if that's the case, and we know this is coming, is this the same product as the Google View or whatever they're going to call it, the mixed reality headset, or is this just a completely different product?
I don't know.
Because it's kind of weird to have two very similar but very different products.
It is weird, and also I guess, Apple probably doesn't plan for this, but let's say that the headset launches, and what if it isn't the commercial blockbuster that they expect it to be? What if, for whatever reason, this just doesn't catch on? Are they really going to go full steam ahead in this and like pour all these resources into a product line that might not actually have legs, or something that could drastically change? Or are they going to start with one thing and then see how it goes and then sort of go from there? I mean, I don't know the insights to the original iPhone. Maybe the story is different with the iPad, but you got to imagine that when the iPad launched, Apple had enough data from the iPhone to sort of say, look, like, we know this has legs, we know it's good. Let's sort of get going on multiple cycles of this. Let's start with the first one. Let's get development of the second one going, and let's sort of go from there. And that makes sense. With the glasses, goggles, headset thing, I don't know if they have the data they need to make a refined second version. And I'm just sort of curious to see what if the response to this is sort of like the MacBook or the Mac Pro, where there's some fatal flaw and they have to scrap everything they've been working on to fix some issue that they didn't see and didn't catch until it was too late.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then the other question is like, okay, let's say maybe it could be the success, but really the glasses are the part that are the success. Because we've talked about this before, who in their right mind is going to be wearing this thing all around? This goggle version, not the glasses version, the goggles version, the mixed reality. Are you going to be wearing this around? Are you expected to be wearing it around? Do I need to, look at my directions while I'm driving while wearing this mixed reality headset? Or is this purely a in-home entertainment thing? Because those are two different things. The glasses, presumably, I wear those all day. Everything I do gets augmented in some way or another with different information. That makes sense. But how these relate is my question. Like, I almost want to go back to our original, like way back in the day, our original prediction, maybe not prediction, but our original hypothesis about what this could be, that maybe this headset is actually a developer kit of some sort. And it's not a real product. I mean, do you think that's possible?
Yeah. I mean, we've been hearing about this since like 2015. It's been a long time. There's been rumors on this, and it's hard to know what's true and what's false and where the direction is going. But, we had always speculated that there's got to be some sort of developer kit of this, sort of like there was for the DTK for the Mac. So, I mean, is it that crazy to think that maybe the launch is the glasses or some sleeker thing? Maybe we're so focused on this big contraption headset when that's not what it is. It's something way sleeker than that. The headset is just the temporary developer thing. I don't know. I think it's a very good point.
Yeah, I mean, there's no actual rumors to point to that. Apparently, this is a real product. But I mean, every single part of it points to it being more of a developer, specific type of product. It's going to cost $3,000, and by the time it actually comes out, who knows, with inflation and everything, I mean, $4,000 doesn't seem out of the question. it's going to, obviously, like I said, you're going to have an actual visor on rather than something that you transparently see through. Again, according to the rumors, we don't actually know what this thing looks like, but it's like more of a Oculus style rather than glasses, which is strange. Also, the AR VR part is what's kind of making me question, because everything Apple has ever worked on is AR. They've never touched VR once. That I can think of, at least. Have they?
I don't
I don't think
think
they've
so.
ever
No,
talked about VR.
always those AR demos. So I don't.
It's always
Yeah,
AR. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. Because I would assume that whatever the glasses end up being, they're not going to have a VR portion, because that doesn't make much sense. Like that, because you need that encapsulated, viewing port that is completely black so that you can have the VR experience. And I don't know. I'm
I
so
mean,
confused. I'm so confused with this product.
we've said it before. We'll say it again. It's going to be a great mystery to see what this is and what it does. And I can't wait until like 10 years from now when the tell-alls come out, or the books or the Twitter threads about the development of this, because I'm sure there are crazy stories as to how this came to be and what had to be done in order to make this happen. Because we just heard, not so long ago, the reports that this product that's sort of being seen on the outside as this next generation of Apple flagship product, whatever, inside the company was never really treated as such, and sort of was relegated to office parks down the road and didn't get the engineering attention it deserved. And I'm sure that it's going to be amazing when it launches, but I'm sure that like 5 years ago when it started, it was completely different from what it is today. I can't wait till we hear more on the insights of what that is.
Yeah, no, I'm interested. I want to hear more about this. Also interesting that I don't know. I'm just confused. I would like to actually see what Google's, or not, sorry, not Google, Apple's take on VR is, because do you have an Oculus, or I guess they call it a
I
Meta
don't, but
now?
I've played around with the one we have at the office enough to know that it's amazing and I love it and it's really cool, but it's also very weird. Do you think that, just thinking about the iPad, maybe you just put it on and like you launch individual apps? Because I'm trying to, like, the Oculus Meta thing has like this weird home screen where it's like this virtual house that looks weird, and it's going to be weird to see how Apple decides to implement that. Are you going to have like this virtual surrounding, or is it just going to launch into like a single app?
Oh, I think you're going to have some kind of virtual surrounding. If I think maybe the whole point of this headset is that you, when you put it on, instead of being in a virtual, house like the Meta Quest does, you're actually in your own environment. You have AR elements, and then you can open up an app that's full screen in an
Yeah.
environment. Maybe
I
that's
mean,
the
maybe
point
maybe
here.
you're
Like,
you're right. It's all AR. It's not VR. It's just sort of AR mixed reality. Like you're never looking at a virtual wall. You are looking at virtual elements in your real world.
yeah, but then maybe like you want to watch a video, then it all darkens, and
Yeah.
then you can watch a video in like full theater mode or something. Like maybe the VR portion is a little too literal is not the right word, but like maybe it's not actually virtual reality. It's more so that it can completely envelop your field of view like a VR
Let's
headset
just
can.
skip
And
forward
it's
6 months.
it's not a
And
world. Yeah, I know, I know. So yeah, we've had like a week since the last time we talked about it. So what do you think? WWDC,
I
January. We've heard
January
kind
makes
of
sense. I'm excited for that. I think we talked about it last time, right? The Ming Chi
yeah.
Kuo thing about January. I think it makes sense. So I am, and that sort of like is an open news time. There's not a lot going on. Apple could really set the tone for the year. I'm
That's
looking
true.
forward to that. I
Yeah.
think that's exciting. I guess also in terms of exciting milestones for Apple, next week, I think June 29th, 15 years since the original iPhone went on sale.
Dang, that's
It's
crazy.
crazy to think how much the iPhone has changed the world. And Matt, where were you 15 years ago? Did you get an iPhone, original iPhone on launch? Tell me that story.
I didn't. No, I did not get one on launch. My dad got one pretty close to launch, not on launch day, but pretty close. And then I got one a little while after that. On launch day, I'm trying to think. All I know is that the iPhone event was the first Apple event I ever watched, and it was great. And then when it actually came out, I knew I wasn't going to get it because it was just at the time that was very expensive for, especially for a phone. And I think I had just gotten my first cell phone ever, like a few months before that. So it's you can't go as your first iPhone. I mean, these days you can, but back then you couldn't go as your first phone being an iPhone. That was a little much, especially as a high schooler. But I can't remember exactly where I was that day, but I think I went to the Apple store to check it out because I couldn't not. And it was like a madhouse. It was super busy. Maybe that wasn't the actual day because they probably didn't let people in that day, but around that time, that's what I was. Did you get it on launch day?
No, I got one probably like you in the fall, but I had friends who had parents who got it on launch day. And I remember like just the hype around that phone for the launch was unreal. The ads and the commercials and the lines and I remember watching the CNET coverage of like the Fifth Avenue store, and it still is just so crazy to see how far we've come. And just I was playing with our at the office, we have original iPhone we've had for years, just to see like how good that old one still is 15 years later. Amazing to see what Apple was able to accomplish and just how good that phone is, which is crazy. It's crazy to think that tech 15 years ago, you think of all the stuff that's changed and how old and antiquated that stuff is. The original iPhone is still works, and it's still pretty cool.
Works. Yeah, it's kind of crazy because I mean, you can look at it from two perspectives, I guess. Like on one hand, they hit it out of the park, and the same basic fundamentals, even if you're using Android, the fundamentals are basically the same. The original iPhone is a touchscreen with apps, and that's about it. Now, obviously, there are things that are better about it. Like back then, they didn't care about the camera very much. The camera sucked. The speed is obviously better. Things like that haven't been improved, but the fundamentals are all there. You can look at it from that perspective of how crazy it is that they got it so right. You can also look at it from the other perspective of how lame it is that nothing has changed in 15 years. Like, things have gotten better, but the fundamentals are exactly the same.
15 years, just crazy to think about how much and how little has changed. And there was a story that came out about how, sort of the inside story on why the original iPhone didn't have copy and paste. And it was interesting, like the explanation as to like what priorities people got shifted around and why it didn't have it, but also like a lot of like the janky stuff that the original iPhone did, like it was rendering like fonts as web pages in some instances, and also like all the stuff that Apple had to sort of invent or modify for the iPhone that we don't even think about. Like obviously like there's the pinch to zoom and there's the rubber banding when you scroll, but even stuff like palm rejection and predictive text when you type on the keyboard and your fat thumb hits the letter to the left or the right, that the phone knows what word you're trying to type for real. Just crazy to think about all the technical accomplishments that happen behind the scenes that we don't even notice anymore today, that were still a really big deal 15 years ago. Just crazy to see how far we've come since that very first iPhone.
Yeah, and even crazier, I would love, someone's got to do this. Well, I don't know who would do this, but I would love to just see like what would happen if that demo on stage failed. If he went on the wrong path and it just crashed. Well, how would the world be different? Probably not very much, because the iPhone still would be good. But, you know, that was you probably agree with this, but that's the best keynote of all time from any company.
I never get tired of watching that.
Perfect. I know. I can probably recite, this is the most nerdy thing I probably ever said, but I can recite it like verbatim, but I still don't get tired watching it. I will say the one part about that keynote that I never watch, whenever I do rewatch it, because we make videos and stuff and we end up having to rewatch it, quote unquote. But I always skip when they get to the singular part. I'm like, get out of here. I always skip when what's his name?
Eric Schmidt from Google,
CEO of Google at the time. Yeah, I was like, get out of here. I don't care about that part. Show me the phone. I don't care about the fact that it's running Google. Even though at the time that was a big deal. The fact that you had Google Maps.
I mean, YouTube as a stock app. It was Google Maps. Yeah. YouTube. Then what else was Google? I know. I think it was just YouTube and Maps for like the stock stuff. I mean, like, isn't it crazy?
Oh, search maybe.
So search is still a thing, yeah. But
yeah, no, it's crazy.
Crazy how the Google CEO was like, "Oh, look, we should just merge Apple and Google." Ha ha! How funny that is, and what the implications of that would have been. But yeah, that's a masterful keynote, and like that's I think one of the things. And one of the reasons why we hark on the headset and why there's a lot of excitement for this is that everyone is craving for, an experience like that, where you see something for the very first time in all aspects. It's not like a new iPhone where like it's a new iteration of what we have and there's like a new design and some new features. This is like all new. So you learn about the hardware, you learn about the software, you have to learn how to interact and do things. And this is what happens when I load this app, and this is what happens when I press this button. That's what's so cool. And that is so rare to find in the tech space, a product like that. And that's, I think why both of us are so excited is we get to start from zero. You get to learn exactly how to do everything and experience everything for the very first time. That's going to be cool. And I think that Apple knows that. And if they can pull this off well, it's going to be a big deal and really set the tone for the tech space and Apple moving forward for the next decade or so. And the iPhone is a great example of a really masterful keynote. It's so cool to see all that stuff for the very first time, slide to unlock, pinch to zoom. It's just crazy to see how far we've come. And also, like you said, how much Apple, I guess, got right then 15 years ago that is still the fundamental stuff and the bedrock of the iPhone hardware and software we have today. We still have the power button. We still have, the volume rocker, the mute switch. I think a lot has changed obviously with screen tech and ports and stuff like that, but the fundamental look and feel of the software is still the same 15 years later.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And I think we're really waiting for that new product, because I was just thinking about this as you were talking about it. The iPhone was really the last paradigm shifting product. Like obviously we had the Mac, so those are all iteration. The iPhone has been iteration since then. Now you could say obviously Apple quote unquote invented or popularized different products like the Apple Watch and the iPad, but the Apple Watch, even though it's completely new, I'd say if all the Apple Watches on Earth disappeared tomorrow, it wouldn't change anything. Like I don't think anyone would care that much. We all love our Apple Watches, but it wouldn't change our life. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I love the Apple Watch, but it certainly wasn't and even the iPad. The iPad's amazing, and the iPad
I was
does a
about
lot
to
of
say
great
the
things.
iPad, the same thing. Yeah,
they're great products, but they're not the same paradigm shifting pieces of tech like the iPhone, the original Macintosh. It was that stuff that really was groundbreaking. And I love the Apple Watch, but I agree with you. It would not. If smartwatches ceased to exist today, we'd lose some nice features, but it wouldn't change the world. Like if the smartphone or the iPhone didn't exist.
Yeah, and it's same like you said, same with the iPad. Like I can think for digital artists, for instance, the iPad is amazing, and they probably wouldn't want to give it up. But before the iPad, I mean, we still had like Wacom tablets where you could still draw on your Mac screen. It was way more janky and it wasn't the same experience, but it wouldn't change the world for a digital artist if the iPad disappeared, or for anyone else, because we would still have the Mac. So it's like, yeah, I think we're all waiting for that next thing. Hopefully the headset is that. And yeah, I don't know. It always comes back to the headset. Like, I don't know if it's really going to work out or not.
Speaking of things not working out, M2 MacBook Pro is now on sale. Embargo's lifted today as the time of we're recording this video, which is odd because usually they do embargo drops on Tuesday morning. Today they did them on Wednesday morning. To be honest, I don't know about you, Matt. Did you watch any? Because I honestly didn't. I kind of knew it's going to be underwhelming. I didn't really look at any of the reviews or anything. But if you're curious about it, it is out now, or I guess by the time you listen or watch this, it will be out on Friday, the 24th. And still no word on the MacBook Air, no word on pre-orders, no word on availability. That's the one everybody's waiting for, but we have no new info on that.
Yeah, so same design as the previous MacBook Pro. Again, we're talking about the M2 MacBook Pro, which is the older design of Pro, not the 14 or 16-inch MacBook Pro, if you did not already know that. I guess the real takeaway from this was I was hoping someone would find a reason why you should buy this, or like who this would be for. Maybe I didn't look hard enough, but I didn't find anything. The closest I found was if you're already going to buy an M1 MacBook Pro, then buy this one instead.
But still,
we still don't know who that person is.
Why would you buy them? Why? It just doesn't make sense. I know we harped on this last time, so I won't do it again. But I don't understand who's buying this and who's advising people to buy this. It's got to be people who just see the price, right? And we're like, oh, I need a Pro. Well, but
yeah, if you think you need a Pro, but the price of the 14, the real Pros are too expensive, then I guess. But even that, like, come on.
It's almost like it's like you want to go into the Apple store like the week before and the week between the keynote of the new phones, be like, do not buy an iPhone. The new ones are literally coming next week. What are you doing? I love that. What's funny to me is the people who are buying the phones between the week of the announcement and release of the new ones, which I guarantee you Apple still sells phones like crazy that week for people who just do not know. You almost want to go in there and be like, don't buy this, please. I want to go in there and be like, when you're looking at laptops, please do not buy this. It just doesn't make sense. There are so many other options to go with one way or the other, but I don't want to say that Apple Store employees are like leading people in the wrong direction. I just think that people are just sort of led to whatever they think is best. And a lot of people, for whatever reason, see the price and they see MacBook Pro and like, okay, this must be good, which is not a good thing.
I don't know how that works when you're in the store. I mean, to be fair, Apple employees do try to steer you away a little bit. Like when we ordered the iPod Touch a few months ago, I guess now at this point, right before they discontinued it, and it was like a back room product that you had to go buy. When I picked it up, he was like, "So what are you like using this for? Like, is it for like a kid or something?" He was so confused, like why I was buying it, and I explained it. And then once I explained it, he's like, "Okay, well, just remember we have a 14-day return policy. Like the Apple Store employee told me to return this thing. Like, so they try to look out for you, but if that's what you want, they're gonna let you get it."
It's like buying an Intel Mac, which they still sell. I think the last one is an Intel Mac Mini. Which why would you buy that? I was thinking the other day of we do video pitches here at JFL, and one of my pitches for this week, and I think we have the same idea, Matt. I saw something on the board from you about Apple products you should avoid buying, and I was looking through there, and for me, it's Apple TV HD, which is already going to be on the vintage list, which what? And it's crazy expensive, which don't buy that. There's the Apple Watch Series 3, which watchOS already doesn't support, so why would you buy it? There's the Intel Mac Mini, and then there's like some other like products that are like okay, but like you shouldn't buy, like the iPhone 11, which I don't know what the price is off the top of my head, but it's like if it's like $500, $600, it's like why would you buy that when you could get a way better phone in many cases by going $100 more for the 12? There's just like there's little things that Apple does and they sell that you shouldn't buy, and I feel like unfortunately for a lot of people they just don't know better, and I'm imagining that many people are walking into the Apple Store and being like, oh, I want a cheap Apple Watch. I'm going to get the Series 3. Or I want an Apple TV, but I don't have an HD TV. Or I don't need 4K. This is cheaper. They don't understand all the problems with that HD Apple TV and what you're missing out from when the price difference, too, is like negligible in most cases. Like $20, $30 difference. It's just no one's there to sort of be the consumer advocate of what to do.
Well, and plus, like, since Apple is selling it, you kind of, if you're uninitiated and you don't really know what's going on with all these products, if Apple's selling it, you're assuming it's like one of the latest products, even though it's cheaper. Like you know intuitively it's probably not as good as the more expensive one, but Apple's still selling it, so it's got to be good, right? Little do you know, if you buy the Apple Watch Series 3, literally in 2 months it's out of commission. Like it's, well, not out of commission, it's still gonna work, but it's like it's out of date at that point, which is so strange. And I think it's more just short-sightedness from a consumer perspective, because when you walk in, obviously you want to spend the best price you can. So when you see the iPhone 11 is cheaper than the 12, you're kind of thinking right then and there, well, it's cheaper, so I'm going to get that one. When you don't realize that if you buy the 12, it's going to last you another year. It's going to last you maybe more than another year, and it's going to do more things for you. So the money is, over the long term, is probably actually more expensive to buy the older version because you're going to upgrade sooner. At least for a lot of cases. Obviously, situations vary depending on what you're doing. But generally, if it's not that big of a price difference and you can get the better one, even if it means you have to wait a little longer to save for it, I think it's worth it. You're gonna have a better experience overall.
Well, it's like I think about all the instances in my life where I am the person who is getting duped. And I laugh because obviously I know tech, I know Apple. Like I could go in there and recommend things all day, but I don't know anything about cars. I don't know anything about like hardware, like tools. There's many things I don't know anything about, and I'm wondering how many times have I been upsold or I've gotten the wrong thing because I just don't know. And I get it. I'm not criticizing anybody. If you walk into a Best Buy or an Apple store and you don't know, it's easy to sort of, if you look at the specs on the paper, like, you know, the Apple has like those little digital displays, like the iPads. Like if you look at it and you say, okay, here's the price and here's what it has, it sort of makes sense. It's just, it's that context that most people don't have. And it's hard to have. That's what sort of helps you make directions and helps you make better buying decisions. I feel like that's the case in many different things. And if you don't have it for tech with Apple, you're sort of missing out. And what's a little bit tougher with this and what sort of stings is that you think Apple's the good guy. You think Apple's looking out for you. You think Apple has your best interest at heart, which isn't to say that they don't or if it's untrue. But is it really good of Apple to be selling an Apple Watch Series 3 at the price they are when they know that it's not going to be supported and they know it's going to get discontinued? And why are you selling this Intel Mac? I guess there's always both sides. I get that. So it's hard to say they shouldn't be doing it. But I feel bad for the people who go in there, they get duped, and then they're regretting their decision later, and they wish there was some more direction, and they didn't happen to get into that situation.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, like you said, this happens in every industry. So there are certainly, whatever you're an expert in, there's something else that you're not an expert in, and you've probably been duped in some way or another. I guess it's just how it is. I guess, what do we call that? The economy? Yeah. That's just how it is. That's how the world runs. What else? Did we miss anything else? I think that's pretty much it for news this week.
Another slow news week. Yeah. Not really any iPhone 14 stuff. Even Mark Gurman, which I find so funny, he does his weekly Power On newsletter, and like that sort of sets the tone for the week. It comes out on Sunday mornings and has all the tidbits for the week. And even he took last week off for whatever reason. So that's how you know it's a slow news week. So not a whole lot to talk about. I think, Matt, that's it, right? Is that a wrap for this week?
That's it.
All right. I guess that's it. If you guys have comments, questions, if you have some buying advice or you got some questions on what you should buy, shouldn't buy, let us know. Again, the Apple Circle hotline number is 949-354-3508. Make sure to give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts. We're available everywhere. And also, again, check us out on YouTube, the Apple Circle Podcast YouTube channel, because we've got full videos and clips of the entire podcast we post all week. As always, thank you guys so much for watching and listening. We'll see you right back here next week on another episode of the Apple Circle Podcast.